For more than 1,000 years, the royal family lived by one chilling rule: never complain, never explain. No matter what stories exploded in public, no matter how brutal the headlines became, the palace stayed silent. That silence was not weakness, it was power. It created the mystery, the distance, the almost untouchable image that kept the monarchy standing through wars, scandals, betrayals, and generations of chaos. This was never just some polished media strategy. It was the backbone of the entire institution, one of the oldest and most protected systems on Earth. The silence was the shield. Without it, the whole image risked cracking apart. But then, something reportedly changed in late 2025, and insiders claim it changed fast. The old rule was allegedly tossed aside completely, almost overnight. What came next shocked royal watchers because William reportedly did not respond with the usual calm palace language or some carefully scripted statement handed to the press.
For the time being, it's impossible for me to take my family back to the UK safely.
According to reports spreading through royal circles, he came out swinging hard, and suddenly the palace did not feel cold and controlled anymore. It felt tense, personal, almost unpredictable. People watching from the outside started realizing they were seeing something the monarchy rarely allows the public to witness: emotion breaking through the walls. Tonight, we are digging into every layer of this reported shift, where it allegedly began, what insiders claim was happening behind closed doors, what William reportedly said that caused such a storm, and what Catherine is rumored to have been quietly handling away from the cameras. Because if even part of these reports are true, the monarchy operating today may be completely different from the one the world thought it knew only a few years ago. And according to the growing whispers around the palace, the turning point may trace back to a deeply private discovery.
We don't go back to some of the practices in the past that, Harry and I had to grow up in. I think it's safe to say that change is on my agenda.
Somewhere between 2021 and 2023, reports claim a collection of private messages allegedly surfaced and landed in the hands of key figures inside the institution. The second that happened, insiders say the mood inside the palace shifted instantly, not slowly, not through quiet meetings or carefully managed discussions behind closed doors. Everything reportedly changed at once. Staff members allegedly began looking at each other differently, conversations became colder, and trust inside certain circles reportedly started breaking apart. According to accounts surrounding the situation, it was the kind of moment that made people inside those walls realize the future of the monarchy could be heading somewhere nobody expected. These were not reportedly just random rumors floating around palace hallways or loose gossip passed between insiders. According to the reporting, the messages allegedly revealed an incredibly detailed picture of what was happening behind closed doors during one of the most chaotic and emotionally charged periods the royal family had faced in decades. And insiders claim the contents left certain people inside the institution deeply shaken. What was reportedly written painted a far more personal and uncomfortable story than many expected. According to those reports, King Charles was allegedly described as emotionally distant during a time Meghan has publicly suggested she desperately needed support. Inside palace circles, that alone was reportedly enough to trigger serious concern and force difficult conversations behind the scenes. But according to royal commentators, one specific line allegedly changed the atmosphere inside the palace completely. One sentence, one message, and insiders claim it instantly shifted how senior royals viewed everything that had happened before that moment. Meghan allegedly wrote that if Charles would not protect her, the narrative will safeguard me. That line reportedly hit like a shockwave. Now, there are different ways to interpret those words, and both deserve to be looked at fairly. One interpretation is deeply personal. It could reflect someone who genuinely felt isolated, overwhelmed, unsupported, and trapped inside an institution that seemed impossible to navigate. From that perspective, the statement may have come from fear, frustration, and survival instincts during an incredibly difficult chapter of her life. But according to reports surrounding palace reactions, another interpretation quickly took hold behind closed doors.
Squashes this idea that somehow my wife was the one that destroyed the relationship between these two brothers.
Some insiders allegedly viewed the statement not as emotional desperation, but as something far more strategic: a warning, a plan, a realization that public perception could become protection. According to these accounts, that possibility reportedly changed everything inside the institution. Because once certain senior figures allegedly began seeing events through that lens, they could no longer look at the situation the same way again. The meaning of every public interview reportedly shifted. Every headline suddenly carried different weight. Every carefully timed appearance, every emotional revelation, every new media storm. Insiders claim it all started looking less accidental and far more calculated. And that is where the real tension reportedly began building inside the palace walls. Because according to royal commentary, the issue was no longer simply about private family conflict. The fear inside certain circles allegedly became something much larger: the possibility that the monarchy itself was now caught inside a battle over public perception, loyalty, and control of the story. According to reports, the palace eventually stopped viewing the Sussex situation as just a painful family disagreement that needed patience, silence, and careful handling. Behind the scenes, insiders claim the mood shifted dramatically. What once appeared to be a sensitive personal matter was reportedly being treated as something much bigger, a situation that required a serious strategic response with real force behind it. The usual royal playbook, allegedly, was no longer enough. No more soft diplomatic language. No more simple, "we wish them well" statements designed to calm headlines for a few days.
I was really ashamed to say it at the time, and ashamed to have to admit it to Harry, especially because I know how much loss he's suffered.
According to royal commentary, senior figures inside the institution reportedly believed the situation had reached a point where tighter control and a unified response were necessary. And while tensions were reportedly growing inside palace walls, something else was quietly unfolding behind the scenes. King Charles, who was allegedly balancing enormous pressure at the time due to his own serious health situation, reportedly made a decision that very few people outside the inner circle expected. Instead of managing the Sussex issue through the monarchy's traditional system of advisors, committees, and carefully measured public messaging, reports claim he handed the responsibility directly to William. Insiders have allegedly referred to this arrangement as Memo 2485, while some reports call it the Fall Mandate. The name alone sounded mysterious enough to spark major speculation across royal circles. According to those accounts, the purpose was simple but powerful. William would reportedly become the single point of control for anything connected to Harry and Meghan moving forward. One voice, one strategy, no more mixed messaging coming from different parts of the palace. And historically, that was reportedly a massive shift. For generations, conflicts involving the royal family were handled directly by the reigning monarch. The sovereign traditionally decides what gets addressed publicly, what stays private, what quietly disappears, and what receives an official response. That structure has reportedly remained unchanged for centuries because control of the family narrative has always rested at the very top of the institution. So for Charles to allegedly step back and place that responsibility in William's hands reportedly sent a very loud message inside palace circles. According to royal insiders, it suggested the old methods were no longer seen as effective enough for the situation unfolding behind closed doors. And according to these reports, the timing also mattered. Charles was reportedly trying to manage serious health concerns while still carrying the relentless pressure of public royal life. State visits, diplomatic meetings, public appearances, ceremonies, endless media attention. The non-stop responsibility of representing the crown reportedly never slowed down. Behind the scenes, insiders claimed the institution was under enormous strain, and giving William greater authority may have been viewed as both practical and necessary during an increasingly unstable period for the monarchy. According to reports, adding the non-stop management of one of the most complicated and emotionally charged family situations in modern royal history onto King Charles's already overwhelming responsibilities was simply too much for one person to carry. Alone. Between health concerns, state duties, international attention, and pressure inside the institution, insiders claim the strain behind palace walls was becoming impossible to ignore. William, on the other hand, reportedly had something different: energy, focus, and a far more direct approach. But according to royal commentary, he also had something much more personal driving him. Insiders claim he was no longer interested in carefully stepping around the situation or relying on endless diplomacy behind closed doors, and reports suggest Charles fully understood that before handing him the responsibility anyway. That decision reportedly changed the entire communication structure surrounding Harry and Meghan almost overnight. The alleged arrangement meant there would now be one clear voice coming from the palace regarding anything Sussex-related. No more conflicting messages leaking from different advisors. No more confusing moments where separate royal households appeared to be operating against each other. According to insiders, the era of mixed signals was officially over. And people working around William reportedly noticed the shift immediately. The atmosphere allegedly became sharper, more controlled, and far more disciplined than before. Behind the scenes, insiders claim it became clear very quickly that the strategy moving forward was going to look nothing like the softer approaches the palace had relied on in previous years. But while public attention remained locked onto Catherine's health, with endless speculation about where she was and how she was recovering, reports claim something much quieter and far more strategic was happening out of sight.
King Charles coming down hard on Prince William, no Chucky boy, and assassination. Yes, you heard me correctly.
According to royal insiders, Catherine was allegedly still working behind the scenes, not publicly, not through interviews or appearances, but privately helping shape the direction the monarchy would take during one of its most fragile periods in years. And according to those reports, her influence during this time was far bigger than many people realized. When viewed through that lens, insiders say it actually makes sense. Catherine had reportedly spent years studying how the monarchy survives public pressure, scandal, and constant media attention. She allegedly understood that the institution's connection with the public depended on one core idea above everything else: duty first, showing up, staying steady, putting the institution ahead of personal drama. According to these accounts, anything that distracted from that image was viewed as a serious risk to the monarchy itself. So while recovering privately, Catherine was reportedly already thinking several moves ahead. What should the monarchy look like during a moment of instability? What message needed to reach the public? And what situations needed to be handled quickly before they caused long-term damage? The answers she allegedly developed reportedly became the blueprint for much of William's future public approach. Insiders claim new internal protocols quietly appeared behind the scenes: stricter rules about messaging, clearer decisions about what deserved a response and what should be ignored completely, and a much firmer separation between the working royals and the growing media storm coming out of California. According to reports, the palace had allegedly reached a breaking point. The old strategy of quietly absorbing criticism without responding, no matter how harsh or damaging it became, was reportedly considered finished. Behind closed doors, insiders claim the mindset had completely changed. Silence was no longer automatically seen as strength. What makes Catherine's alleged role in all of this especially fascinating is how invisible it reportedly remained the entire time. No public announcements, no dramatic press moments, no headlines giving her credit. According to royal commentary, everything was happening quietly in the background, which may have made the strategy even more effective. By the time William's tougher public approach started becoming visible, insiders claimed the framework behind it had already been carefully built. And according to reports, Catherine's influence was allegedly woven all through it, even if her name never appeared in the center of the media storm. But before any of this exploded publicly, William reportedly made one final attempt to handle the situation privately. According to reports, sometime in October 2025, he allegedly called Harry directly. Insiders claim this was not some casual brotherly conversation or emotional reconciliation attempt. William reportedly had one very specific request. He wanted Harry to publicly correct the narrative surrounding Catherine and clarify what had actually happened behind the scenes. Not a public apology, not a reunion, just accuracy. But according to these reports, Harry's alleged response completely changed the tone of the conversation. Insiders claim he told William that walking back the narrative at that stage would cost him too much in his new life and public image. That answer reportedly hit hard inside palace circles, because according to accounts surrounding the call, William allegedly viewed the situation very differently after hearing that response. In his reported view, this was no longer about confusion, emotional pressure, or misunderstanding between brothers. The belief inside certain royal circles allegedly became that Harry was making a deliberate choice, and that choice was being seen as prioritizing his public position over repairing trust within the family. Then came the moment that reportedly shocked even longtime royal watchers. Only days after the reported phone call went nowhere, William allegedly stepped directly into the spotlight himself, no spokesperson standing at a podium. No carefully sanitized statement filtered through palace communications teams. No vague royal language designed to reveal nothing while sounding polite. According to reports, he walked into the picture gallery at Kensington Palace, stood before cameras personally, and spoke in unusually direct language the royal family almost never uses in public. Insiders claim the atmosphere felt completely different from a traditional palace appearance. The distance, the mystery, the carefully controlled restraint the monarchy had relied on for generations suddenly seemed to disappear, replaced by something far more personal, emotional, and impossible to ignore. According to reports, William allegedly addressed the claims surrounding Catherine directly and without hesitation. Insiders say he flatly rejected the idea that Meghan had been treated in the way some public narratives suggested. But what truly stunned people watching was how far he reportedly went afterward. He allegedly pointed toward what he described as a coordinated effort to damage Catherine's public image through strategically placed media stories, amplified online coverage, and repeated negative narratives circulating across multiple platforms. The language, according to royal commentators, was far more direct than anything the monarchy would normally allow in public. William reportedly described one side of the situation as a family focused on duty above everything else, showing up every day for public service, charity work, official visits, and causes without demanding constant attention in return. According to reports, he emphasized the idea of quietly doing the job rather than turning the job itself into a public performance. Then came the part that reportedly made the room go completely still. Without directly naming anyone, William allegedly contrasted that approach with what he implied was happening on the other side. He reportedly did not need to say much more because everyone watching already understood exactly who and what he was referring to. The reaction was immediate. Royal observers reportedly described the moment as something completely unfamiliar, almost shocking by palace standards. Not because royals had never defended themselves before, but because they had almost never done it this openly, this personally, or with this level of directness. According to commentators, this did not sound like the monarchy speaking through its usual distant and carefully polished language. This reportedly sounded like the future king deciding the old rules no longer worked. For generations, the institution survived by staying silent, controlled, and emotionally detached in public. But according to insiders, William's appearance reportedly signaled that the strategy had fundamentally changed. Whatever happened next, the palace allegedly no longer intended to remain the quiet side while public narratives spiraled out of control. But what many people watching did not fully realize at the time was that this public moment had reportedly been building quietly behind the scenes for much longer than anyone knew. According to reports, A specialized team had allegedly already been assembled in private long before William stood inside that gallery. No public announcement, no official acknowledgement. Just a group of advisors and specialists whose reported role was to carefully map out the media landscape surrounding the Sussex situation. Insiders claim they allegedly tracked patterns between stories, studied which outlets repeatedly pushed certain narratives, analyzed the timing of major releases, and examined how online amplification reportedly worked across social media and digital platforms. According to these accounts, everything was being documented piece by piece. And what reportedly emerged from all that analysis was something palace insiders allegedly no longer viewed as random media chaos, but a much larger and more organized pattern than they had originally believed. According to these reports, the deeper palace investigators looked, the more the situation allegedly appeared coordinated rather than random. Insiders claim they began noticing repeated patterns, stories surfacing in very specific outlets at carefully timed moments, online content suddenly exploding across social media, and narratives gaining traction with almost perfect timing. To people inside the palace, according to these accounts, it reportedly stopped looking like a couple simply sharing personal experiences with the public. Instead, insiders allegedly began viewing it as a highly organized media operation with a very clear objective, shaping public perception of the royal family and, in particular, influencing how Catherine was being viewed around the world. By the time William reportedly stepped in front of cameras at Kensington Palace, insiders claim he had already been fully briefed on everything this private team had gathered behind the scenes. Every timeline, every media pattern, every connection allegedly mapped out in detail. Then came the response. According to reports, within just 72 hours of William's appearance, major American outlets reportedly published fresh stories centered around Meghan's emotional experience inside the royal family. The focus allegedly shifted quickly toward themes of isolation, feeling excluded, and emotional abandonment. The timing reportedly caught immediate attention. According to royal commentators, the framing of those stories appeared highly personal and sympathetic, seemingly designed to redirect public conversation away from William's accusations and back toward Meghan's perspective. For longtime observers, insiders claim the media rhythm felt familiar, but this time, something was reportedly very different. According to reports, the palace allegedly refused to stay silent. Instead of waiting for headlines to fade naturally, insiders claim officials publicly pushed back and challenged what they described as commercially packaged content, material allegedly created with clear branding or business value while still being presented to audiences as purely personal storytelling. That response reportedly shocked many royal watchers because it represented a dramatic shift in palace behavior. Just a year earlier, insiders say the institution almost certainly would have ignored the coverage completely. But now, according to these reports, the strategy had changed. The palace was no longer simply absorbing narratives quietly and hoping the storm passed on its own. And according to royal commentary, the next phase reportedly revealed even more. Insiders claim the messaging coming out of California soon began evolving away from direct royal family conflict. The focus allegedly shifted toward reinvention, wellness projects, children's content, documentary ideas about generational struggles, and discussions about breaking harmful cycles. According to observers, it was a noticeable pivot, one that seemed designed to move beyond palace drama while still keeping public attention firmly connected to the larger stories surrounding the monarchy. According to royal commentators, the shift in public messaging coming out of California reportedly looked very calculated. The image was evolving from unhappy former royals into something far more polished, independent public figures focused on wellness, media projects, and personal growth. On the surface, many observers considered it a smart reinvention strategy. But insiders claim the palace was already thinking several moves ahead, because, according to these accounts, A major reason the reinvention narrative connected so strongly with audiences was the royal tension underneath it all, the mystery, the conflict, the image of breaking away from one of the oldest and most powerful institutions in the world. That emotional connection reportedly gave the story its energy. And according to reports, palace advisors allegedly understood something important. If that royal connection ever fully disappeared, much of the public fascination could disappear with it. Take away the visible link to the monarchy, close the palace doors completely, remove the sense of ongoing conflict. Suddenly, the narrative reportedly loses part of the drama that made people emotionally invested in the first place. So insiders claim the palace was no longer simply reacting to headlines day by day. They were allegedly planning far beyond the immediate media cycle, thinking carefully about what would happen 3 or 4 moves later. Then came what some reports describe as the most shocking development yet. According to these accounts, discussions allegedly began around removing Harry and Meghan's remaining royal standing entirely. Not a temporary adjustment, not reduced responsibilities, a complete and permanent separation from the institution. Reports claim everything was allegedly being considered: remaining access to royal properties, official privileges, lingering forms of recognition, all potentially on the table. And according to insiders, this was viewed as the kind of decision that would permanently reshape the relationship once and for all. What made it even more striking was how quietly it was reportedly happening. No dramatic public warning, no emotional announcement from palace balconies. According to reports, the monarchy allegedly handled it the way it handles its most serious decisions: silently, carefully, and almost invisibly, while the outside world remained distracted by headlines. Then the conversation reportedly took an even more personal turn. Around the same period, William allegedly began speaking publicly about Archie and Lilibet. According to observers, his tone noticeably softened compared to the sharper strategic language from Kensington Palace. Insiders claim this sounded less like a future king delivering a message, and more like someone genuinely concerned about children growing up in the middle of non-stop public conflict. According to reports, William allegedly said they deserved stability, privacy, and the chance to experience a proper childhood away from constant media chaos and public back-and-forth battles. The palace reportedly moved quickly to clarify that no threat or aggressive action was being implied. But for people closely following the situation, the message still landed hard. According to royal observers, the institution was signaling that it was paying close attention to how the younger generation was becoming part of the public narrative, and insiders claim there was growing discomfort behind palace walls about where that story could eventually lead. According to reports, the palace allegedly made a very calculated shift in how it framed the situation publicly. By emphasizing concern for Archie and Lilibet's well-being, insiders claim the institution positioned itself as the side focused on stability, privacy, and protecting children from non-stop public conflict. And according to royal commentators, that move created a difficult question hanging over the media storm itself. Because once the conversation turns toward the impact on children, the non-stop interviews, headlines, speculation, and online battles reportedly begin looking very different to the public. Insiders claim the palace understood that continuing the conflict at full speed could start raising uncomfortable questions about what all of it might eventually cost the younger generation emotionally and personally. Then came the moment that reportedly stunned the room. According to reports, William allegedly brought up Prince Andrew during one of the most tense discussions surrounding the situation. And for royal observers, that comparison reportedly landed like a shockwave. Prince Andrew, one of the most publicly disgraced figures in modern royal history, lost nearly everything tied to official royal life: public duties, patronages, military roles, and much of his standing inside the institution itself. Over time, the royal family reportedly created enormous distance between him and the public image of the monarchy. But according to insiders, William's reported comparison was not framed as a personal attack or direct threat. Instead, royal commentators claim he was making a much larger point about how the monarchy operates structurally. According to these reports, the message was simple but unmistakable. No individual inside the royal family stands above the institution's expectations, rules, or consequences. Titles do not provide permanent protection. Public standing can disappear. And history inside the monarchy has reportedly shown that when the institution believes certain lines have been crossed, it is willing to act without emotion or sentiment, even against people very close to the crown itself. According to observers, everyone listening reportedly understood exactly what the historical example was meant to imply. It was not loud, it was not dramatic, but insiders claim it carried the weight of a warning wrapped carefully inside royal history. And through all of this noise, Catherine reportedly remained almost completely silent in public. While headlines exploded and public battles played out across television, newspapers, and social media, reports claim she chose a very different response. One that insiders say may have spoken louder than any official statement ever could. Just days after one of the most intense periods of the entire situation, Catherine reportedly appeared at a pediatric oncology center. No dramatic speech, no emotional interview. According to observers, she arrived wearing a simple dress and a small anchor brooch, a tiny detail many people immediately noticed and discussed online. And then she reportedly did something remarkably simple. She showed up quietly, focused on the children and families there, and carried out the work without turning herself into the center of the story. According to royal commentators, that contrast alone reportedly said more than words ever could. According to royal observers, the contrast during this period reportedly became impossible to miss. On one side, headlines tied to California continued dominating coverage, documentary announcements, public appearances, brand launches, streaming projects, interviews, and a non-stop cycle of media attention. The public narrative reportedly kept moving at full speed, constantly producing new content, new reactions, and new discussion online. On the other side, insiders claim the palace was trying to project something completely different: quiet appearances, duty, stability, service without spectacle. And according to reports, nothing symbolized that contrast more powerfully than Catherine's reported visit to a children's cancer ward during the height of the tension. No dramatic statement, no emotional interview, no attempt to publicly answer every accusation swirling around her. She reportedly just arrived quietly, focused on the people in front of her, and carried out the engagement without making herself the story. For many people watching closely, the difference in tone reportedly spoke volumes. Then came a line allegedly attributed to Catherine that insiders claim stunned senior palace figures because of how calm yet firm it sounded. According to reports, she quietly told people around her, "I forgive her, but I will not accept her suffering as my duty." That sentence reportedly carried enormous weight inside palace circles. Because, according to royal commentators, it managed to communicate several things at once. There was no cruelty in it, no bitterness, no public anger. The tone reportedly reflected empathy and restraint. But at the exact same time, it also drew an unmistakable boundary. The message, as insiders interpreted it, was that compassion did not mean accepting endless responsibility for someone else's pain, especially if that pain was becoming tied to public attacks against the institution itself. And according to these reports, that balance eventually became the core philosophy guiding the palace response during this entire period. Empathy on one side, institutional clarity on the other. The ability to hold both positions at the same time without allowing one to completely erase the other. When you step back and look at everything together, royal observers claim the picture reportedly becomes much bigger than a single family dispute. Because if these accounts are even partially accurate, what the public may have been witnessing was the end of one royal era and the beginning of another entirely. For generations, the monarchy survived by remaining distant, mysterious, and emotionally controlled. The institution rarely engaged directly with accusations or media storms. Instead, it relied on ceremony, tradition, public appearances, and the assumption that time itself would eventually quiet the controversy. And for decades, that That strategy reportedly worked remarkably well, even during extremely difficult periods in royal history. But according to insiders, the digital age changed everything. Today, a private message can reportedly become a worldwide headline within hours. A viral social media post can shape public opinion long before the palace even has time to respond. And according to royal commentary, online amplification can quickly turn disputed claims into something that feels accepted as fact, regardless of how complicated the truth may actually be. Inside palace walls, insiders claim there was growing recognition that the old strategy of silence was no longer protecting the institution the way it once did. In some circles, that silence reportedly stopped looking dignified and started looking powerless. And according to reports, what William and Catherine allegedly began building instead was a monarchy willing to respond more directly, more strategically, and far more publicly than previous generations ever would have considered. A monarchy prepared to openly identify media patterns, challenge narratives, and step into fights the palace traditionally avoided at all costs. According to royal commentators, William and Catherine reportedly are no longer interested in playing by the old palace rules. The era of simply staying silent, avoiding direct conflict, and hoping controversies fade with time appears to be disappearing fast. Instead, insiders claim the future leadership of the monarchy is becoming far more willing to call things out publicly, confront coordinated narratives directly, and stand in front of cameras speaking in plain, unmistakable language. And that is a massive gamble, because the mystery surrounding the monarchy was never just tradition or image management. That distance, that silence, that untouchable feeling surrounding the royal family was part of the institution's power itself. For generations, the crown survived partly because it stayed above public arguments rather than stepping into them. But the moment a monarchy starts explaining itself publicly, something changes. According to royal observers, once the palace opens the door to direct public debate, it becomes incredibly difficult to close that door again. The institution gains the ability to respond faster and defend itself more openly, but it also risks losing some of the mystique that made it feel larger than ordinary politics and media wars in the first place. And right now, nobody truly knows whether that trade will strengthen the monarchy long-term or slowly pull it into battles it can never fully escape, because according to these reports, there is no historical blueprint for this version of the royal family. No modern precedent for a future king standing before cameras and openly discussing media coordination, narrative shaping, and strategic amplification campaigns in such direct language. The softer monarchy, patient, restrained, endlessly absorbing criticism while refusing to explain itself, reportedly may be fading away. What appears to be replacing it, according to insiders, is something far sharper, more strategic, more aggressive in protecting the institution, and far less willing to quietly tolerate attacks without response. Whether that transformation becomes exactly what the monarchy needed to survive the modern media era, or the beginning of a dangerous shift that changes the institution forever, remains the massive unanswered question hanging over all of this. But if the events of 2025 are any indication, one thing reportedly feels certain: the monarchy the world is watching now does not operate the same way it did even a few years ago. And what comes next may be even more explosive than anything we have already seen. So now the question goes to you. Do you think William and Catherine made the right move by breaking the old royal tradition of silence? Or do you think the monarchy risks losing something important by stepping into these public battles directly? Drop your thoughts and theories in the comments, because this story is far from over, and some insiders believe the biggest twists may still be ahead. And if you want the full picture on everything unfolding behind palace walls, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and share it with anyone following the royal drama closely. Every like seriously helps push these stories out to more people looking beyond the surface headlines. Also, stay tuned, because the next chapter is already building. Reports, new claims, private tensions, and even more shocking palace intrigue are reportedly still developing behind the scenes right now. And the sequel to this story may reveal details that completely change how people view this royal power shift. One thing is becoming impossible to ignore, though. If these accounts are even partly true, William and Catherine have already made their decision about the kind of monarchy they intend to lead. The age of silence is ending, and whatever rises in its place may reshape the royal family for decades to come.